Well, today I thought I'd take you for a kitchen garden tour and show you how I'm going to be gardening after the Texas storms, which basically means I'm going to be starting from scratch. Hi, sweet friends. I'm Mary, and welcome back to Mary's Nest, where I teach traditional cooking skills for making nutrient-dense foods like bone broth, ferment, sourdough, and more. So if you enjoy learning about those things, consider subscribing to my channel, and don't forget to click on the little notification bell below. That'll let you know every time I upload a new video. Well, I thought we'd do something a little different today and step out of the kitchen, and I'd share with you how my garden looks, my kitchen garden, now that we've cleaned everything up after the Texas storms we had back in February. Now, I'm actually going to do two videos on this. This is part one, and then once I get everything in the ground and planted, I'll do part two as things grow. Now, if you've been with me a while, you may have seen my video from last year in about June 2020, I think, when I decided that I wanted to redo my garden. It was during the quarantine and our son was home with us, and I had always grown mostly herbs back here, but I decided that I really should start growing more vegetables. So my son was very sweet and he put in raised beds, and we had wonderful plans and started growing things. I had tomatoes and basil. It was wonderful. And all of my herbs that were here originally were also flourishing. Now, in many cases, pretty much all my herbs function as perennials, meaning that they come back every year, and many just grow all year long, like rosemary. However, after all of those ice storms and all that snow and all those sub-zero temperatures we had back in February, pretty much everything died, and only a handful of things are starting to come back. So what I wanted to do today was share with you some of the plants that I bought that I plan on using to kind of refresh my garden. And I am starting with a lot of plants because I'm getting a late start to start with seeds. Now, if I was smart, maybe I would have started some seeds inside during the cold weather we had. But we were kind of busy just trying to stay warm and figure out what to cook and so on and so forth. I did a whole video on our experiences on all of that, which I'll be sure to link in the iCards and in the description below. But the bottom line was that when it was time to start gardening, we had a lot of cleanup to do. And we're kind of just on the edge of finishing that up. My husband has been amazing. He has really had the bulk of the big cleanup in terms of the trees and all the fallen limbs and all of that. And I've kind of just been putzing back here in the garden. Now, before I go over all the plants, there's two things I want to share with you. They're actually two shout outs. I have a very sweet friend here on YouTube named Rob. And Rob and his wife and their two sons have a YouTube channel called Ession's Family Garden. And I've been friends with Rob a number of years now. And he saw everything that was going on down here in Texas. And he was so kind to send me a lot of seeds. It really was a very sweet care package. And the seeds, some of them I'm going to plant, and they should do fine, because when I'm filming this, we're in March right now, and so I can still put some seeds right into the ground, which will be perfect. And then some of the other seeds that he sent me, I'm going to plant in the fall, because we really have two growing seasons here, assuming we don't get any more sub-zero temperatures. But and so that was so kind of him. And he has a great channel. He's a wonderful gardener. They have a huge backyard, and he and his wife also do cooking and canning. You'll love his channel, so be sure to head on over there. And the next shout out I want to give is for my very sweet friend Kay, who has the channel Late Bloomer. And I suspect maybe a lot of you are already familiar with Kay, but she used to live in California, and her channel was primarily devoted to gardening. However, it's been totally redone because she moved from California to Tennessee and bought a homestead. And she's all by herself and doing this, and it's absolutely amazing. So you definitely have to head over and watch her adventure. It's a lot of fun. But I have to thank Kay so much for the great tip that she gave me. Well, she gave all of us, anybody who watches her videos. But she got these boxes that normally hold pictures. And this one is for my fall seeds. and the other one is for my spring seeds. And what I love about this concept that she showed in one of her videos is that you just put your seeds, right in their packet, no big deal. You just put your seeds right into these little packets that normally would hold photographs. So how clever is that? And I'm gonna, when I get fancy, I'll label each one of these. I did them alphabetically, and hopefully when I get a little time, I'll put labels on, to indicate what seeds I have in each one of these. But I try to be as organized as possible, and I love this because do you want to know how I organized my seeds before? In a plastic bag. Just all of the packages thrown into a plastic bag. But this is such a great system. And let's see, 2, 4, 6, 8. So it's got 16 of these little photo holders that then all fit neatly into this little tote. And you can just carry it like this. You can put it on a shelf anywhere you want. And I got these at Michael's. And let me tell you, it's the Michael's craft store. If you have a Michael's near you and this is something you want to do, definitely check them out there. They have tons. And clear, at least the one that I went to, they have clear as well as they have ones that are, the little boxes inside are different colors. That might be kind of fun too. You could put like string beans in the green and so on and so forth. But they're 40% off, or at least around right now, they're 40% off at Michael's. And so they're a really good savings. Now you can find them online, and I'll put a link down in the description underneath this video. But if you have a Michael's near you and you can get them at Michael's, they're really a lot more affordable. So a big shout out thank you to both Rob and Kay. Rob for the wonderful selection of seeds. I so appreciate your kindness. And Kay for a really great tip to help me get a little more organized. Now I'll show you around the garden a little, and as I said, I've got that video that I did with my son if you want to see how the garden looked back in June. It looks a lot different now, but I just want to give you a little glimpse. We'll talk about the plants that I have here on the table. I just want to give you a little glimpse. There's really not a lot to see at this point, but I do have some bright spots that I'm very happy about. First of all, this over here to my right, that's my kitchen window right over there. And so this is what I look out on when I'm washing dishes at the sink. Over here, pretty much everything died. I used to have all my spicy peppers over here, near where the little frog, or is that a little frog or toad fella, over here. And they did very well over there. But I've also had echinacea over here in the past. And I'm sorry, my sweet husband is filming with the phone, so I don't have the microphone on, so I'll always try to face forward. But anyway, so I've had echinacea over there, purple coneflower, in the past, and that did really well over there too. So I think that's what I'm gonna do this year, and I think I'm gonna put the peppers, they're spicy peppers, they do really well here, somewhere else. But I had some parsley in the cooler months, but that's all gone. And I had some sorrel over here. This is a little more shadier part. This is eastern exposure on this side. And a lot of plants, even when they say full sun, here in Texas can only tell, at least in central Texas, can only take the morning sun at most. And then it even gets a little hard for them. Even morning sun gets a little hard for them in June, July, and August. So I noticed my sorrel was struggling, so I'm going to tell you what I'm going to do with my sorrel this year. But in any event, this was where I had all my upright rosemary. I have a lot of prostrate rosemary in the front, and it does great there. Unfortunately, it all died with all the freezing temperatures, because rosemary doesn't really do well once it freezes. The temperatures get really cold. I think I'm not exactly sure now, I forget, but it's when it just gets so cold for so long, like what we had, that it just really couldn't survive. It likes the soil warm. It's a Mediterranean plant, and our climate here is very Mediterranean, and that's what rosemary likes. So it was not happy in February this year. But so my upright rosemary, it's all dead. So I'm going to replant there, and I used to put lavender over in the raised bed that's outside my kitchen door. That's on the other side. But my kitchen kind of juts out of my house. It's like its own little jutting out thing. And so the kitchen garden kind of goes like a U. So I had the lavender over near my kitchen door in a raised bed that I have there. But that area is getting more and more shady because of a really big tree we have that's really grown over the years. And I noticed the last couple of years my lavender wasn't doing as well as it used to. So since this is kind of a sunny location, that side of the house is south, and this can be real sunny, and the rosemary and I think the lavender will be really happy. So that's kind of what I'm going to plant over here. And then in that raised bed, which I'll take some pictures and overlay for you, that raised bed, I'm going to put my sorrel and my purple sage. Sage to sorrel, I love it. It's got that wonderful lemony flavor. You can make soups with it. You can throw it into salads. It's very nutritious, and I love it. But it can't take any sun here in Central Texas. So I'll have that in that shaded raised bed, and I'll also put my sage. I've got some purple sage. I found it at my local grocery store that I always share with you, HEB. They had a lovely little garden they have a lovely little garden section at the HEB we go to. And so I saw the purple sage, so I bought that, and I'll put that over there in the shady raised bed as well. And the reason is that sage also, it doesn't do well in our hot sun. So I think both, it's going to be an experiment, but I think both are going to do well, and I'll keep you posted as everything grows and share with you how everything's doing. Now, in terms of climate zones, I've shared this with you in the medicinal herb videos that I've done. I am in 8B, and so I'm in a pretty warm climate. And I recently came across a book when my husband and I were tooling around in San Antonio at some of the used bookstores down there, and I found this great book put out by, I think it's the American Horticultural Society, and they talk about how not only do you want to look at your hardiness zone, which helps you know what plants will do well in your area, you also want to look at something called your heat zone. And in the book, they talk about heat zones. And we're in a pretty hot heat zone. And so that's why a lot of times when I buy plants and they say loves full sun, I know that that means loves partial sun in many cases. I kind of have to experiment. The rosemary and I think the lavender, they're fine. As long as it's a little breezy and they've got their sun and they're watered periodically, they're fine. But a lot of herbs and vegetables here, when they say full sun, they often need partial sun. And that's good because in my backyard, I've got a real big, I've got this is a Yopon. Yopon holly does really well here. This is the weeping version. I've also got some upright versions in the front of the house. They're drought tolerant, they do great, and this gives some shade. And then here in Texas, we also have trees called live oaks. And I don't know exactly why they call them live oaks, but it may be because they look like they're evergreen all year long, because the new leaves are sprouting in the spring when the old leaves are falling off. So they kind of just look evergreen. They look alive all year long. But this year was very different. With all that cold, the leaves got brown, everything fell off. You'll see, we have like leaves everywhere right now. And so, you know, I'll kind of get those up. I'll put them in my composter. And but the live oaks are already sprouting. And they give some shade here. Some of the beds are very sunny, and then other of my raised beds are a little more shaded, like partial shade. And so I'm going to just sort of divide my vegetables up. The tomatoes are fine in all the sun, although come July, you know, everything's kind of winding down, and then you just sort of start prepping your garden for your fall plantings, which you can put a lot of your seeds starting in August. And then you can get your nice greens and all of that, you know, come the fall and the winter months. But in any event, so over here, this is what I'm really happy about, because I love Texas tarragon. Some of you may know it as Mexican marigold, but of course, you know, in Texas, we're going to call it Texas tarragon because it tastes just like tarragon. And tarragon is so hard to grow here. French tarragon or Russian tarragon, it doesn't matter. It's just too darn hot. Even in full shade, it's not happy here. But Texas tarragon does great. It's drought tolerant. In the fall, it creates beautiful yellow flowers. I love it. And so I want to bring you over here and show you that it's starting to come up. So here is my Texas tarragon. It's starting to come up. Here's some Texas tarragon also. It self-seeds and it will really fill in an area beautifully if you're in a zone where this can do well, like 8B. But I've got a clump there. I've got some here. I've got some coming up here. I've got some coming up here, some here, some over there. So I'm very happy because I love this, because not only is it a culinary herb, it's a beautiful ornamental in the fall with all those beautiful yellow flowers, and I'll definitely be sharing that with you. Now, I just want to take you over to the side for a minute before I discuss the raised beds. So this is just a little side garden that I have. And over here is where I plant my lemon balm. And I was really wondering what was going to happen with it. But I'm so excited because it looks like it's popping out there. So my lemon balm is coming back. And I'm very happy right there. So that's exciting because I love lemon balm. And it makes a great tea. It's a medicinal herb that you really want to grow in your garden if you can. And the nice thing about lemon balm is when you walk past lemon balm, you don't even have to brush up against it or anything like that. You're just gonna smell this amazing lemon aroma. It's one of my favorites. I really love it. Now, this is where I tend to put all my mint, and I primarily have peppermint and chocolate mint. I'm not a huge fan of spearmint, but I love peppermint and I love the chocolate mint, which kind of has that chocolatey almost fragrance aroma. But it's all coming back, so that's great. I've got a wild onion going up over here, which is funny. But everything, I think this is going to fill in great. Before you know it, it's going to be, this will just be filled with mint. And what you want to do with mint is, if you remember, because I've made this mistake, you kind of want to find a place where you can corral it, because mint can take over your garden. But if by chance you do have it in your garden and you're trying to, with other plants, and you're trying to keep it under control, just keep clipping it back and drying it and using it, whatever the case may be. And then that way you can kind of keep it under control. Now, I just wanted to bring you over here on our little patio that's outside my kitchen door, because I want to show you the raised bed. But if you're hearing this, the sound may sound a little different because we've got a lovely little fountain here. And it's just delightful to have. It's so refreshing and cooling, especially when it's hot. But I wanted to show you the raised bed. So this is the raised bed that I was talking about, where I used to grow my lavender. But because of the really large tree, it's getting more and more shady here. So as you can see, we have a bird feeder here, and sometimes if some of the sunflower seeds don't get eaten, they start to grow and sprout here. So we'll have sunflowers, which is cute. But I'm going to put my sage. This is my purple sage. I'm going to plant that here, and then over here is where I'm going to plant my sorrel. Now, this is the red veined sorrel. I really like the plain green soil sorrel. I like the plain green sorrel the best. However, I couldn't find it. So maybe I'll try to grow it this fall from seed or something. Generally these greens do really well in the fall. But I think in the shade, since I saw the sorrel, I just grabbed it. And I'm going to plant it here. And then hopefully it'll do well, it'll be nice and shady, and it'll be happy. And of course I have St. Francis here, patron saint of animals, and I just love him, and it's always nice to have a statue of him here in the garden. But I have to tell you a story about him. We had a bad windstorm, and it was during the time when everybody was quarantining, and so our son was at home with us. And during the bad windstorm, St. Francis flew forward and banged his head on the walkway. And you can even kind of see it chipped this stone a little. God bless him. But his head broke off. But my sweet son, our sweet son, glued his head back on, so he's all back in business, guarding our garden and being a wonderful patron saint for our dog. So these are the raised beds that I have. I've got 3 square ones here and then 2 long ones behind me. And this is where I'll be putting all my vegetables. I'm gonna do tomatoes here. Not 100% sure what I'm gonna do on the end there. I might try the cucumbers, which we'll talk about in a minute over there. And then in the back, I'm gonna try growing some green beans. And Rob was so sweet because he sent me a lot of green beans, so I'm excited to plant those. And over here, my chives are coming up beautifully. They didn't have any problems with anything. And I love these chives. They have a great onion flavor. They do really well. I'm gonna break up some of the clumps maybe in the fall and just sort of fill this whole area in with chives, because I love these because they get a beautiful round pink flower on top. It's just so pretty. I really enjoy seeing them. And what you're seeing behind me is what I affectionately call the barn, but it's attached to our house, and it's actually what we use for our garage and for storage because we have no cellars here in Central Texas. Now I just wanted to show you these trellis. This is what I'm going to put into these long raised beds behind me where I'm going to plant my green beans. And I was so happy to find these. I have had a really hard time finding trellis. I couldn't find any that would be the right size for me at Home Depot or Lowe's. I just kept looking. And we were at Costco, I think it was like last week, and sure enough, they had these, and they had so many. I was so happy. So I bought 2, and they were really reasonable. They were $19.99, which I thought was a fair price. So now I want to go over with you all of the plants that I've purchased that I'm going to start putting in the ground. It's starting to get dark now. I'm not sure, maybe it's about 7 o'clock or so at night. And I've been out here working on various other projects, getting things set up. I don't know if you can tell. I think the hose had its way with me and I'm like kind of sopping wet. But I wanted to show you these plants and share with you some of my ideas for where I'm going to put them in the garden. Now, if you saw the garden video from last summer with my son, you may remember that over here, all back there was just filled with Italian oregano. I don't know if it's going to come back or not. It's not showing any signs yet. But to be on the safe side, I was at my grocery store, my local H-E-B, and as I said, they have the one we go to has just such a cute and lovely little garden area. And the fellow who works there, I think his name is Alexander, and he's the nicest young man, and he's so helpful and helps you find the plants you want, and he talks to you about gardening. He's really just such a sweetheart. And every time I go there, I'm always so happy when he's working. But they had a great selection of herbs. I think everybody, and some vegetables as well, which we'll talk about. I think everybody is really anxious now that they've survived the cold weather, now that they've gotten through the cleanup, and now while we're in March and we still can plant before it gets too late, I think everybody's feeling really anxious to be planting. And they had this wonderful oregano. Now this one I'm actually looking at is Greek oregano, but I've never really had that in my garden before, so that'll be interesting. But this one is the Italian oregano, and I'm definitely going to put this into the garden. Now I got to think about where I want to put this, because in the past, as I said, I had it back there. But the only reason we left it there, it's been there like for 25 years, kind of as long as we've been living in this house, and it did well there. But because it's a low-growing herb, the other things in the garden sometimes, overpowered it. So I think I'm going to find a place more in the front part of the garden to start planting this. So they look a little droopy. I just watered them a little while ago. It's been really hot here today. I would say, what would you say, honey? Maybe topped out, maybe about 80? Can you believe it? 80 degrees Fahrenheit.
Yeah, 80, 82 or so.
Really?
Yeah,
oh
I'm
my
not
gosh.
Sure, yeah. What a change from a month ago.
Yeah, it's hard to believe. Now I've also got some thyme here, and I've got lemon thyme, which I always like to grow a lot of lemon thyme because first of all, I just love things with lemon, but also lemon thyme is really one of the thymes, that's funny, the thymes that you want to grow if you want to grow thyme for medicinal purposes. And I talk about that in the video where I review 10, what I consider my 10 essential medicinal herbs and to have on hand, you know, for your herbal medicine cabinet. And lemon thyme is one of them. And it's nice because thyme can have a very strong flavor, and the lemon helps kind of moderate that strong flavor a bit. And I have a video, which I'll definitely link to either in the description or in the iCards, where I show you how to make a cough medicine. Thyme is wonderful for making homemade cough medicines. And as I said, lemon thyme, or the other one is just kind of the plain garden thyme. Maybe it's called mother of thyme. Those are the ones that are have the most volatile, the most essential oils in them. Now the other thyme that I have, I think this one here, yeah, this is French thyme, and this is just a wonderful, wonderful culinary thyme. So I like to grow some of that too. But I only have 2 of those French thyme plants. I have 4 of the lemon thyme. I really like to grow a lot of lemon thyme. Then over here, I've got some lavender. Now, the variety, the little thing that came with it just says lavender, and it looks very similar to the lavender that I used to have that didn't survive the cold weather. And so I bought 4 plants. I'm going to experiment. We also have Spanish lavender here that does quite well, but I'm not a fan of the flower. I'm just not a fan of it. But this one that looks more like, you know, the English lavender or the French lavender, I love this flower. And when it grows and it flowers and you cut this, it just looks so pretty. So I really, when I saw this, I said, oh, I'm gonna get some of this and we'll see how it does in the garden. And so I'm gonna put it, you know, around here on that corner, that southeast corner, along with the rosemary, and we'll see how they do. So that's going to be a little bit of an experiment. Now over here I've got my tomatoes. I've got Roma tomatoes and I've got the sweet 100s. I love the sweet 100s. They're the little cherry tomatoes, and they just do really well here, especially when it starts getting hot. And the big tomatoes really can't do very well, at least not for me. You know, I don't have any coverings or a greenhouse or anything like that, and no way to really protect my tomatoes. So these cherry tomatoes will grow quickly, and I'll be able to pick them, you know, pretty much right up till June, July maybe, for salads. They'll be great. And then these are the Romas. I love growing the Romas. Those I can grow fairly well too. And these are great because I can grow these, I can just slice them up and put them on a salad, or I can use them to make tomato sauce. I can use them to make tomato paste. I can chop them up and can them. If you like to do canning, home canning, I have a video where I can a whole bunch of Roma tomatoes, and I'll definitely link to that if that's something that you like. And you can water bath can tomatoes, and in that video I show you how to water bath can them. So water bath canning can be a nice place for beginning canners to start out with. So definitely I'll be sure to link to that video. But I'll show you these Romas as they grow. Now here I've just got a bunch of chamomile plants, and I love chamomile. It just has the cutest daisy looking flower, and it grows to maybe like about 2 or 3 feet. Let me see what they say here. Yeah, 2 or 3 feet, and it just is very pretty, and it's got almost like a dill-like greenery, and it'll have a beautiful yellow. Oh, here, maybe you can look at this little card here, but I'll definitely show you once they start to grow. But it has a very pretty little daisy flower that's lovely to look at, and I find it a very pretty plant. And so I'm going to just work that into the herb garden, you know, around my veggies, around my raised beds. And I think I've got I've got 6 of those. So I want to put a lot of that in. I really like chamomile. It's pretty to look at, and it makes a great tea. As you probably know, if you're familiar with the traditional medicinals, I think they call it nighty night, or celestial seasoning, sleepy time with the little bear in the chair. So the old packages used to be so cute, but they all use as their base chamomile. And I have to tell you, my husband, oh, and you can chime in, honey, he's the cameraman, but my sweetheart often enjoys a cup of chamomile tea after dinner. And because he definitely wants to avoid caffeine, especially in the evening. And whenever I join him, we usually take the traditional medicinals nighty night, or something that we'll be making homemade, which I'll definitely be sharing a video with you on that. And when I do that, I sleep so well. So there's definitely something to it. And what do you find the chamomile is?
Well, it's delicious. That nighty night blend really has a smooth flavor.
Yeah.
And so it's delicious. It's not like a straight herb.
Yeah, it's not just the straight chamomile.
It kind of has a blend of herbs. It's just magnificent. So yeah, drinking that, and we can sleep well afterwards.
Yes, yeah. That's the nice thing, and that I'm going to share with you a blend that I think is really delightful, that you can whip up very easily if you grow chamomile, or if you have some dried chamomile that you buy, and then with a few other herbs, it really improves the flavor. Because sometimes chamomile tea just by itself can be rather bland, but you mix it with a few other herbs and you can make it very tasty. And you can pick medicinal herbs that also have sedative effects to help you relax. And I find that if I remember to drink that, I do sleep a lot better. Now, the other things that I want to show you is, we went to another garden shop. It's called Natural Gardener. It's kind of on the outskirts of Austin, and I think I've shared with you, I live in the Texas Hill Country between Austin and San Antonio, and we kind of bebop between both, but we live a little closer to Austin. And we went to this place, Natural Gardener. It's a lovely garden shop. I put a picture on Instagram where I was looking at some of their statuary. They had beautiful statues. They had St. Francis, they had the Blessed Mother holding baby Jesus. It was so sweet. They just have a lot of nice statuary. And it was funny because even outside there, they require people to wear masks. And so I had a bandana tied around my face, and I got such a kick out of all of you who follow me on Instagram, and you were saying, now that's a Texas bandit, and it really made me laugh. But in any event, we went to Natural Gardener, and as I said, oh my gosh, it's it's just a gardener's paradise. They have everything. But I went to the herb area, and they usually have a lot of interesting herbs that you don't normally find at places like H-E-B, the grocery store, or like Home Depot or Lowe's. They have kind of your more unusual herbs, and they had one lemon balm left, and so I snatched it up because I didn't know if my other lemon balm was going to start coming back. But it's fine that I have this one. My other one now will have company. I want to grow more anyways, so that'll be great. And speaking of when we were at Natural Gardener, I'm just looking, oh yeah, it's right here. You're going to laugh when I tell you this. They had a coupon for $10 off if you spent $50. But when we checked out, we only had like $48. So the lady said, oh, you're a little short on to get the discount. So I just like panicked, and I was like, this is a long line and I don't want to hold everything up. And I said, okay, just add 2 flat leaf Italian parsley. And then she's like, okay. And she added them up, and we popped over the $50. And so I ran back and got them. Now, normally I wouldn't. It was like I panicked, and that's like my brain just thought of that. But normally I wouldn't plant too much parsley this time of year because when it starts to get hot, this is just going to bolt, and it's going to be the end of it. It's sort of it's a biennial, perennial. It usually comes 2 years in a row. But once it gets hot here, you know, it'll probably come back the next year. But once it gets hot, boom, that's it. So I like to usually put this in the fall when it's cool. It'll really flourish and do very well. But anyway, so I have these two. I'm going to plant them in the shade underneath this weeping yopon here, which is such a lovely tree, and it really gives a lot of shade. Gives some shade to the table as well. Plus, this part of the house where my kitchen juts out blocks the western sun. So hopefully, I've had them sometime in the spring and summer. So hopefully, it'll do okay with a little bit of shade. Now, the other thing that I'm really excited about, because this is something that I have not tried before. In the past, when our son was younger, he likes to garden too, like his mother, and my husband's the good cameraman. But we would grow the little cornichons, the gherkin cucumbers, and we had a lot of fun with that. And those are great. You can ferment them, you can pickle them. They're really a lot of fun to grow. And if you have kids, I highly recommend, because they grow quickly. They only grow to, if you're familiar with gherkins, they only grow, it's what we call them here in the US. I think the French call them cornichons. And they only grow to about this big. And they're really cute to put like on a little charcuterie platter or something like that. And I would grow those along with patty pan squash. They look like, the patty pan squash looks like little flying saucers. But I haven't been able to find any patty pan squash, because if I was going to do it, I was going to start with plants. But I'm excited because some of the seeds that Rob sent me, it's not patty pan, but it's a greener version of a patty pan that look like the flying saucers. So I think when our son comes home, he's going to get a big kick out of seeing that, if I can get those to grow. But in any event, these are heirloom pickling cucumbers. So I'm very excited about that. If you've seen any of my videos where I've shared with you when I've purchased pickling cucumbers at the grocery store or at the farmer's market, I've pickled them. I think I've fermented some, and then others I made like a sweet and sour kind of pickle, and I water bath canned them. You can water bath can pickles, and they were really good. So I am excited. I bought 4 of these. So we're gonna see how they're gonna do and what's gonna be the best place to grow them in the garden. Then over here, I'm just gonna walk over to the other side. Over here, I have some basil. Now, normally I just grow basil from seed. Basil, you know, also here in the warmer months, it grows like a weed, and I'll plant it with my tomatoes. But I saw these sweet little plants, and I said, oh, I'll get a little jump start. I'll just go ahead and put some of these in. You know, basil and tomato love to be together. And so I said, oh, I'll just go ahead and put some of these in. I found these at the grocery store, and I'll just put them in with some of my tomato plants, as well as I'll put in some basil seed as well. So that'll be fun. And then, let's see, I think the other thing, oh yeah, I've got 2 more to discuss. One is the bee balm. I love bee balm. Now, bee balm is fun because, as the name implies, bees really like the flowers. And I'm going to show you, let's see, yeah, this one has, this little stick has a picture of what the flowers look like. And they're very colorful, and like, they look kind of like a little firework blast. They're very pretty and very colorful, and the bees love them. But these need shade. So I'm going to plant these over on the far end of my yard. And I'll talk about this yard in the middle. It's a little messy over here behind my husband. I'm using that as my staging area. We'll talk about that in a minute. But I'm going to plant these under the live oak tree in the shade, and I'm really hoping that they do well. I did try planting them. I've had these in the garden before, and I've had them both over there under the live oak, and I've had them here along the back of the house, and I thought they would do okay, but I think it was really just a little, even the morning sun was a little too much for them. So I'm hoping that they'll do well under that live oak. And then last but not least, this is Texas. We've got to have our peppers, and they have to be hot peppers. So I've got the mammoth jalapeno. These are great. Hot peppers grow like weeds here. And if it doesn't get too cold, my pepper plants will actually act like perennials, and they will just start fruiting every spring. It's amazing. I had them in that other video where with my son. You'll see I have the peppers over there, but they're all gone now. There's a little remnants of where I had to pull out some of the dead plants, but what are you gonna do? Those things happen. So I hope the lighting is okay. It's really starting, the sun is setting on the other side of the house, so I hope the lighting is okay here. But so anyways, these are the mammoth jalapenos. They get nice and big. They're beautiful for stuffing, like with cream cheese, and you can wrap them with bacon. You can do all kinds of delicious things. And then I've got 2 of those, and then I've got 2 of the serranos. And I really love the serrano peppers because I like to, let me see if they have a picture. Yeah, they're a little smaller than the even the regular jalapeno, and it's got some dirt on it. But what I often do with the serranos is I leave them on the plant till they almost, well, actually till they turn red and they're almost starting to dry on the plant. And then I'll pick off a whole bunch, and I use them almost like I would like a cayenne pepper, but I'll put a bunch in a jar, cover them with olive oil, tamp them down a little, and just let them steep for a couple of weeks, and then I'll strain it. And then I have this fabulous olive oil, chili oil that I love drizzling on chicken. And you know, and I'll cut the chicken up and I'll drizzle it real well with that spicy oil, and then broil it in the oven. Oh, it's delicious. So this is my staging area. It's a little bit of a mishmash of stuff. I've got fences. I found this great hose. I think I got that at Costco. I really needed a new hose, and I was so happy to find it. It was very reasonably priced. It's made in the US, and I'm like Kay in that regard. When you go over to Late Bloomer, she has a whole plethora of things that she shares with you that are made in the US. So if you live in the US and you want to buy things that are made in the US, she's a great resource. So I was so happy when I found this hose made in the US, and what really attracted me, it says kink prevention technology. So I won't get it all twisted the way I normally do with some of my older hoses. So other than that, I've just got a mishmash of things. I always save these little black buckets that were from when we planted the rosemary in the front of the house. These are great for moving dirt or transplanting things, or if you're giving cuttings to people. I always like to save those. You can put them into baskets if you want to put a plant in a basket and yet not, you know, like use it as a liner. They're great. I got a little wheelbarrow. I just got a whole big mishmash of things. And I just want to show you that this used to be just a backyard with grass. It's not a large area. We have to fence everything because we have a lot of deer around here. So the property on the other side of the garage, none of that's fenced, and that's just a happy place for the deer to live. So, but that's about 1/4 of an acre, and it would be nice maybe to fence it and garden it, but for now the deer are just very happy enjoying that and eating what they can. But this, so what we did was, you know, I really wanted this to be an herb garden, and so we put in this stone path. It's not like the patio that's set in cement or anything. It's just kind of cobbled, for lack of a better word, like cobblestone, but just a cobbled path. And my plan, the East Coaster here, was that I would get time, maybe, like mother of time, creeping time, to grow dirt through all the cracks. But it's just a little too hot here. So I just grow a lot of weeds. But in any event, if you have any ideas, if you live in 8B and you're in the hotter zone, maybe here in in Texas, let me know if you've had any luck getting things growing through around stones and whatnot in walkways. But yeah, not just leads to the back of the house. There's a gate over there, and that's where I keep like my compost bin and another hose reel, things like that. But stay tuned for part 2 over the next couple of weeks. When I get all this planted, I'll take you along with me and you can see how everything's going. And in the meantime, if you're gardening too and you want to see how I take scraps from my garden, scraps from my kitchen, and then put them in the garden, be sure to click on this video over here where I show you how to garden with scraps, and it's great for beginners because there's no expense involved. And I'll see you over there in my Texas Hill Country kitchen. Love and God bless.